explain. I was doing a painting of a fella in the snow last year, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted him to do and how I wanted him to pose. So very quickly, I spent about 20 minutes drawing up these figures freehand. There was no pencil drawing underneath them.
Did he pose, or did you?
No, this was just out of my head.
Okay, got it.
Because looking for photo reference and all that stuff, when I don't want to spend the time doing it, it was a matter of trying to find something that would fit, and being able to draw something was the biggest thing. But there's no sketch underneath these, but I'm going to show you how to sketch something very simply. So if you want, you can draw a line for the body very quickly and find the middle for his waist approximately. And then you're going to draw the head on him, and then you could draw the shoulders on like so. And this would be his waist and down to his feet. And it's very, very simple. And find out where your hands go down to. You could stand there and look in the mirror and find out when you're standing where your hands come down to on your body. But the waist is going to be right about here, and then you have the slant of the shoulders and the slant of the body itself. But you can gesture this out very quickly. And I'm just moving around to make sure that I don't sit there and I don't draw the head and then I draw the shoulders. I always like to kind of gesture the whole body out to see how this is going to be in movement, and get the movement of the figure in there instead of having it so stiff, okay? But this is gesturing, trying to get, even like the head, you draw the large shape first, and then you start with where this is, where the bottom of the nose is, where the mouth is. And usually if you cut the head in half on an adult, the eyes are above the halfway point. You divide that again in half, and you have the nose and then the mouth. And then you have the chin, then you have the head up here, depending on whether they have a lot of hair or not. But this is the way you begin a drawing, is that you begin gesturing out things and not sitting there trying to draw it exactly. Even when I'm doing a landscape, I'm doing very quick gesturing on the landscape. Then I'll erase some of the lines. So once you've got this down, I'm going to put in a little bit more movement into him.
What do you mean by saying putting more movement into it?
I want to get just a little bit more exactness with the shoulder body action here,
Got it. Okay.
just to be a little bit more exact. Okay, and that's very quickly, okay? Nothing exact, because if you draw it so stiff in the landscape, it's not going to look like part of the landscape. So what I want to do, and you really only need 2 brushes. You don't need more than that.
Which ones are those?
I have the number 10 or 9 round and the number 6 round, I think. I think it's a number 6, yeah. So what I want to do is give something of a color for the body itself. And I'm going to start off by just very quickly painting in that paint's a little thick, but you get the idea. Something for the body up here, and then his pants down here. And I'll take a little bit of the red light and some raw sienna and paint something in for the head. Now, I'm not being real exact on this. I want this to be just loose. And you can get a fair, I don't know why this table is so wildly.
Could be the floor too.
Yeah.
Could be Dale.
Put a tiny bit of paper under a corner, it'll stay.
Who let this student in?
What colors do you like to use for flesh again?
I put down a very basic flesh tone with, let's say, the cadmium red light. And I could take the raw sienna and you have a very simple flesh tone. And it can be very bright, or you can add more of the raw sienna.
Why raw sienna instead of some of the alternative yellows?
Sometimes the other yellows are a little bit too bright when you're doing small figures. So the raw
Yeah.
sienna is grayed
That's your
down
point.
and so forth. So when I'm looking at doing a figure as far as how things should look,
What color is that?
that is the cerulean blue a little bit with what I just mixed up for the face over here. But this can be done very simply. And allow it just to flow together. But if you really plan out your figure drawing, it will have a tendency of looking a little bit stiff. And right now, I just put down the basis of what's there without getting into too much. Now, I would leave that dry. I'm not worried about, you can run a little bit of a shadow underneath it so it holds to the ground. But you want to keep it very simple. Don't try to overdo things. Now, if I take the smaller brush, if I'm doing a person behind him that's further back, I'm looking at the waistline here. I'm going to draw a line right here. And this would be going down in perspective like this, so they would be about this tall. So the waistlines are basically all going to match, and this person will look like they're further behind.
Yeah, I read the other day that someone said, well, all of the heads should be at the same level. And I understand the logic of that, but
If they're,
it
if
would
they're
be
on the,
boring.
if they're on the same plane.
Yeah, but it would be boring to do that.
Yes, it would be.
I mean, boring to look at.
And then you would really have to study if someone is sitting on the ground as opposed to somebody standing. Their heads are not going to be at the same level.
Right, yeah.
Can you make him do the moonwalk like Michael Jackson?
Actually, he is, you just can't see that.
Yeah, you
It's
just
so
can't see
fluid.
it. Yeah.
Is it the part of the moonwalk where the legs are actually, very close together?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just before he does this.
Yeah. You know that signature lean that a lot of his he'd used in his dancers? They all had special shoes, and there were actually nails in the floor, so they would kick the heel of their special shoe into the nail in the floor, and that's how they were able to lean over all the way. Because physics says you can't do that.
No.
Not something to hold you in.
He's walking his elephant. But it's something that you really have to kind of practice before you go into it.
A lot of practice, I think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of sketching helps. I want this person kind of walking away from me, so I'm not gonna put a face on them. I'm waiting for this to dry up here. But it's a matter of developing from a frame.
Did you have this, did you envision this as you started, or are you just following happy accidents, or both?
I'm following happy accidents along with what I put down. I had an idea of him walking away, but not with an elephant.
It was originally a corgi, right?
Yeah, it was originally a small corgi with a long nose.
It takes imagination, aren't you? Nobody's gonna figure that out.
No, and you know what? It doesn't have to be quite figured out exactly sometimes because they're so small within the frame of reference that they're in.
Yeah.
You can put down a figure and basically leave it at that.
Yeah, all the eyes doing is seeing a pattern that's recognizable to it. Doesn't really need to see.
Right.
See details.
But you want to get the idea of what's happening. Now, even up in here with the, let's give some hair to this guy.
Thank goodness it's not orange.
I got it, Jim.
You missed that, Jim.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a haircut like that once. It was involuntary though. But you can go in here and you can form, just to get an idea, if you're doing, let's say, a little bit of a face in the crowd, but you're not doing a portrait.
And you could stop right now, that'd be sufficient.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah, depends on how distant the person is. You'd rather sketch with a pen and pigments, wouldn't you, than a...
Yeah, you could.
Well, what's your preference?
I prefer just the watercolor with the pencil underneath.
I don't think I followed. You mean you said with a pencil and...
Just the watercolor.
Oh, okay. I
Excuse
gotcha.
me.
You know, we would murder with a mustache, can't you?
It's Frank Zappa.
Oh, yeah,
There's a name from the past.
Was he at Woodstock?
Frank Zappa? No,
No, I don't think so either.
Who was there at Woodstock that you listened to?
Santana,
Was it
Jimi
Sant-
Hendrix.
Yeah, I remember Jimi Hendrix.
I
That's
remember.
probably all I saw or heard.
We're not going to ask you what you were doing. Though.
No. Babies taken care of.
Yeah, I know. You're taking care of babies and. How many babies did you have there?
2.
And whose idea was it to go there?
Oh, my husband's. God, not mine. And the other one was just 2. I didn't have a lot of fun.
I don't think you probably did, no.
God, you were in the mud. Weren't you in the mud out there?
Yeah.
We left before it started raining. Thank goodness.
Okay.
Now, you're using a technique there that I've never really conquered. What you do is you put down for his eyes, put down dots for the eyes, and then you went in with water and you
And
softened
soften
them.
it. Yeah, because I don't want to give them any, you're doing a little portrait here. You don't want to give anything too much, too definite on them.
But that's a basic watercolor skill that I've just never conquered before. Going in and softening edges. I gotta get, that's one of the things I've gotta deal with much better than I do.
Now you can always go in. And I can pull out a little bit of light here. That's hitting them.
What kind of brush is that?
That's a flat.
Now, is that pigment still damp? Or are you actually?
No, I've got a
lifting
damp,
it?
I've got a damp brush. And I'm gonna be, I'll pull out a little bit there so I have maybe a little bit more, something that's in shadow on this side and keep it.
What is the pigment that you're lifting, is it dry when you go to it?
It's dry, yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, because if it was wet, it would be, still moving.
what pigment, what is the pigment that you used? Remember?
I used the ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, and burnt sienna.
Okay, yeah, those are not staining very much.
No. But there's really not a lot of work that I would put in.
Nobody lets you go back and do things though.
Right. But you can still futz with it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have just died.
But that's how you'd want to approach the figure. Very simply, you can go in here and you can do a very quick movement of how they're going to look and then build on that. And start building it like that, very simply. Don't overwork it. And if you want to show there's light on her head, you can actually add white to a pigment, or you can paint around their head like this with the dark.
Yeah, I saw on a painting once, a watercolor, where it was people in a city, and he left a strip of white above every head and above every
Yes,
shoulder.
and you can do
Boy,
that.
was that powerful.
Yeah, because it does show the light coming down. Now, there's an artist, Alvaro Castanet, that uses white a lot in his paintings, and he'll take the white and he'll just basically hit right up on top of here, across here, do all sorts of things like this right when everything is wet and it just diffuses.
So that was gouache?
That was gouache. But it's something that you kind of have to practice quite a bit
Yeah.
when you're doing it. And I'm not saying these are great, but it's a matter of see what you can do with the pigment. And this is all scrap paper, which is usually what I practice on anyways.
Yeah, you gotta put a 60s haircut or sideburns in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The pork chops is the used to call
Yeah.
'em.
Boy, I remember the day.
Everybody had them.
Not me.
I didn't.
I knew a girl who had them.
Definitely did.
That's
Twinkly.
Probably hanging on the wrong crowd if one of the girls got it. Are you painting back there? Jim?
Yeah, yes, I was trying to follow along on some of them.
Okay.
Can't go that fast.
Well, one of the things you seem to do with your paintings is to bring the feet together so that the,
You can, I mean, you can, when you do this, you can also kind of break away and do something like this too.
but what I'm seeing though is by having the feet close together, it gives an illusion of movement fairly strongly. Because if your balance is not perfect,
Right, exactly, but
You
I mean,
learn murder.
I could have something like this too, to where they're moving like this very quickly. And he's got a blue blob on him that he's walking.
you're walking an elephant.
No, this is the elephant over
Oh.
here. But just to get that movement going, you can even give it a little bit more movement with a cast shadow underneath it like so. And that will move it along. But it's just a matter of practice with the figures that you can get some sort of feeling of movement. And a lot of times it's done with the angle of the shoulder going this way, and then the waist is going this way, because that gives that movement too.
Yeah, you're right. I thought about that.
And then I have the head kind of in a downturned position, like so, that he's looking this way. But it's just a matter of trying to get a feeling of what's going on as far as a very, very, very simple movement such as these here. And I did these in one wash, I didn't play with them. So I started at the top, went down to the bottom, and I left them. I didn't go back and add dark streams, I added this. But gesture people with pencil first to get the flavor and the movement, whether they're from magazines or have your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend stand up and
Elephant.
elephant stand up if you have one. But I did all these in one movement of no pencil. I just started from the top, went to the bottom just to get the idea of what I wanted to do, nothing more than that. And I ended up using, I believe, this guy here, I put in the painting. Because I just wanted a very simple movement. And I left a little bit of white there like that because it just kind of gives a little bit of movement with his legs and his knees. It was in the snow. He was over 40 years old, so you gotta be careful.
How many colors are in those?
These up here, 2. I used burnt sienna and I used ultramarine blue.